If you're at Harvard right now, I sincerely hope that you're doing okay, because my goodness, Harvard seems like an absolute bloody nightmare. As a recap, first there was the Francesca Gino scandal that resulted in one of the top researchers in all of Harvard University being put on administrative leave due to allegations of data fraud. Then, a few weeks ago, the president of Harvard University, Claudine Gay, has to step down due to lots of different pressure from many different reasons that I covered in this video over here. Then just last week, 4 top researchers at the Dana-Farber Institute of Cancer Research, that's Harvard's Cancer Research Lab, were accused of data fraud, and those allegations led to 31 papers having to be corrected and 6 of them being retracted. And I was going to make a video covering that scandal with the Dana-Farber Institute, but just 2 days ago, 2 days before filming, another major scandal happened with another top Harvard researcher. And this one is Khaled Shah. So Khaled Shah is a Harvard Medical School professor, and he is also the vice chair for research at the Department of Neurosurgery at Brigham and Women's Hospital. And he is facing a lot of heat for dozens of allegations of image manipulation and research misconduct across a large number of papers. So in today's video, I'm going to be breaking down the allegations against Khaled Shah, because some of the image manipulation that you're going to see is like shockingly amateur, and it's amazing that this managed to get through peer review, but to be honest, at this point, I'm not surprised that, pretty much anything can get through peer review. So I'm going to present the evidence side by side, but if you want all sides of the news that you read, then you should sign up for the sponsor of today's video, which is Ground News. I use Ground News literally every day on both my phone and my computer, because for me, it is the best way to navigate the reporting bias that exists in mainstream media today. For example, if you look at this story, which is just yet more chaos at Harvard, this is a story saying that Harvard's DEI, or diversity officer, has been accused of 40 instances of plagiarism in the wake of Claudine Gay's scandal. Now, as you can see on Ground News, this story was almost completely ignored by left-leaning media, but very well covered by right-leaning media. So if you're somebody who typically only consumes left-leaning media, then this is likely a story that would be in your news blind spot, aka a story that you would have never seen. But thanks to Ground News' blind spot feature, it's easy to see news stories that are only covered by one side of the political spectrum. Another reason why I love using Ground News as well is because of the tags that they add to every headline, so that you can see the political leaning, the funding source, and the level of factuality for each different news source that you're reading. For example, if we look at NBC, which was the only left-leaning publication to report on this story, and I know that because of Ground News' handy tags that they add, we can see that they went with this headline: Harvard DEI chief is the newest target of plagiarism accusations. But if we compare that headline with a right-leaning source, which I know is right-leaning thanks to Ground News' handy tags, for example, Breitbart went with this title: Another cheater, Harvard chief diversity officer accused of plagiarism. A lot more pejorative, a lot more emotional. So with Ground News and their handy tags, it's easy to compare headlines and see how the same story is reported about differently depending on the political leaning of the organization that you're reading that news from. So if you want to be properly informed of the bias that exists in the news that you read, then be sure to sign up for the Vantage plan with Ground News. The Vantage plan is the plan that's going to give you access to all of those features that I just talked about. If you use my link in the description, which is ground.news/Pete, you'll get 30% off the Vantage plan. Thank you, Ground News, for sponsoring today's video. Let's talk about the accusations against Khaled Shah. So Khaled Shah is a cancer researcher, and he does a lot of different research into many different treatments and therapies for cancer, but he's best known for his research into stem cell therapy for treatment of brain cancer. For example, if you look at this paper titled Target Receptor Identification and Subsequent Treatment of Resected Brain Tumors with Encapsulated and Engineered Allogenic Stem Cells. This is a paper written by Khaled Shah and what looks like 50 million other co-authors. So this paper has a lot of jargon, but from what I can understand, this is essentially what they're saying. In this paper, they claim to have invented a special type of cancer-fighting cell called the MSCBIF, which is a cell that they made from stem cells. And what they claim in this paper is that MSCBIF can be applied directly to a tumor, and what it does is release a toxic substance which is only harmful to cancerous tumor cells, but not harmful to normal, healthy tissue. But not only that, they claim that they've managed to put these cells into a gel. And so when you apply this gel to the target area, those cells don't wash off or fall off. Instead, they stay in place and work on that specific tumor in order to destroy it. And not only that, but they said that they've engineered these cells in such a clever way that after their job is done, they have a built-in self-destruct switch. So after they have released their toxic substance which destroys the tumor cells, they also destroy themselves so that they don't then end up, going around to other healthy tissue and potentially damaging other parts of the body. Absolutely incredible if it was true. The problem is though, of course, and of course that's the reason why I'm covering it on this video, is that this paper, which makes amazing claims, is full of data fraud. And we're going to go through some of that data fraud right now. I just want to give a quick shout out to one of my subscribers who sent me a very handy PowerPoint of all of the evidence of image manipulation in Khaled Shah's papers, which I independently verified as being correct. So I won't name you by name because I didn't ask if I could, but thank you so much. You know who you are. This made my job a lot easier. So let's have a look at some of the evidence of image manipulation. So in this paper, the one that I just told you about, there are multiple instances of image manipulation within the same paper. For example, if we look at this first one, so the image on the right is the one from the paper that I just told you about, and as you can see, it is exactly the same as an image on the left, which is taken from a completely different paper researching a different thing from a completely different team that doesn't include Khaled Shah. So they've literally just, cut this little bit of image out and pasted it into their own paper and pretended like that is the result that they got from their study. And this certainly isn't an accident, because within the same plot, there is yet another image taken from the same paper, and they've pasted that one into their paper as well, pretending like that is the result that they got. Khaled Shah and his co-authors also seem to have borrowed images from Khaled Shah's other papers. For example, if we look at this image, again, the one from the paper that I told you about is on the right. This one is very similar to this one on the left from another one of Khaled Shah's papers. It looks identical, except that, one of them has a much higher resolution, one of them has a lower resolution, but you can see from the distribution of the dots, this is the same image. And these next ones are the reason why I wanted to cover this story, because I think it's so hilariously lazy. This image in the third row is actually taken from a website that sells antibodies. It's the product photo for the thing that they're selling. They go look, we sell antibodies, this is what they look like, and they've just taken that image from the website and pasted it into their paper. And this doesn't just happen once, this happens another time. So this is supposed to be an image of the stem cells that they used in their paper. This is found on page 48 of that very handy PowerPoint that my subscriber sent me. And as you can see, that this image is just a section of an image taken from this website called Science Cell that sells stem cells. So again, they've just used a product photo from presumably where they bought the stem cells from and put it into their paper being like, hey, this is the image we took of the stem cells we got. And in case you were wondering, the image below that one that I just showed you is also taken from the same website and is also a product photo. Also, within the exact same paper, there's also evidence of copying images from this other paper, which is done by what looks like Chinese researchers. It looks like they're investigating completely different things, but they've just taken these brain cross-section images and pasted them into their own paper. Purple is purple, green, or what is this, teal is teal. They're exactly the same images, but just in two different papers from 2 different years from 2 completely different sets of researchers. Also, again, within the exact same paper, there's also evidence of them copying their own images within the same plot, which is absolutely insane to me. So if you look at these 3 columns, these are supposed to be showing different treatment groups, I presume. And so this one on day 1, highlighted in green here, looks the same as the one in the second treatment group on day 42. It's exactly the same image within the same plot. And I'm like, if you're gonna commit image fraud and data manipulation, at least put the images in different plots so it's not so obvious. I mean, you're literally putting the 2 images almost side by side, so it's it's pretty obvious that these are the same image, right? And I don't know, it's unbelievably lazy, and it's crazy that such lazy image manipulation can get through peer review. And there were many more issues with that same paper that I didn't just talk about. I'll have my editor put up images of those now, and there's also lots of evidence of similar types of data fraud in other papers. So the one I just talked about was from 2022, which is really recent, but there's even evidence of similar data fraud happening in a paper published in 2023 and also earlier papers as well. Some of them are similar to what I just talked about. Some of them are to do with blots, which we've talked a lot about. So if you don't know, Western blot is a procedure that we've talked about before. It's a technique in biological science that is used to detect different types of proteins. Essentially, the thicker and darker the blot, the more present that protein is in your sample. And we've seen lots of evidence of image manipulation when it comes to Western blot experiments in the past. We talked about it when it came to Mark Tessier-Levine, who is the president of Stanford University, who had lots of evidence of Western blot manipulation manipulation in his papers. And also we talked about it with Greg Semenza, who's the Nobel Prize winning scientist who also had Western blot data manipulation in his papers. So once again, with Khaled Shah's papers from Harvard, we also see lots of evidence of Western blot manipulation. For example, if we look at this paper all the way back from 2001, we can see that there is evidence of image manipulation here. What are these hard lines in your blot strip? There should be no such hard lines in your blot strip. That clearly looks fishy. That looks like someone has pasted a blot into a strip that is otherwise not supposed to be interrupted like that. And if we look at B, the strip directly below it, we can see, again, this is unbelievably lazy. We can see that the blots in part 1 and 2 are exactly the same as the blots in part 5 and 6, except that 5 and 6 have been zoomed in a bit. And we know they're exactly the same because not only are the blots exactly the same shape, which should never happen organically, but also the noise around the blots are also exactly the same. And so we know that they are exactly the same. So you might be wondering who we have to thank for finding all of these examples of image manipulation. And once again, it's Elisabeth Bik, the same person who busted Mark Tessier-Levine, the same person who busted Greg Semenza, the Nobel Prize winner. Well, she's also busted Khaled Shah in this case. And I always wondered, like, how does she do it, right? Like, does she just have this like photographic memory of what every plot looks like so that when she reads a paper, she can go, that one looks familiar to me?
So I still use mostly my eyes. Since about 3 years, I'm using software, and there are several packages on the market. So I'm using 2 of them, Image Twin and Proofic, to help me find these duplications. And Image Twin has a database of images, so you can sometimes find duplications of an image within one paper with another paper, where they appear to either have used that image from another paper, or maybe both of them came from the same source.
So that seems to be the case of what's happened to Khaled Shah here. There's just tons of examples from a huge, long career of image manipulation throughout this person's career. Of course, for legal reasons, I have to say there is currently no evidence suggesting that Khaled Shah was the one who was doing the image manipulation himself. There is only the fact that there seems to be a lot of image manipulation on a lot of different papers across many different years that Khaled Shah's name is attached to. In all of these papers, Khaled Shah has multiple co-authors. Oftentimes he is only the final author on the paper, which suggests that he is not the one doing, all of the, legwork in the beginning. That might be the case, that might not be the case. There's really kind of no hard rules around this. But sometimes he is the primary or first author on the paper, which suggests that he is the one doing the groundwork. But again, there's no sort of evidence of that. So yes, Khaled Shah maybe is unlucky. Maybe he always happens to work with people who love doing image manipulation. Or maybe there's something about working with Khaled Shah that encourages this kind of behavior. Who knows? I don't want to get sued. What's interesting as well is I heard down the grapevine, and I won't tell you who told me this because I don't think they want to be named, but I heard from someone at Harvard that apparently the culture at Harvard has recently shifted in wake of all of these allegations of research misconduct. Apparently, the culture used to be at Harvard for top researchers to try and get their name on absolutely as many papers as possible. Because the thinking was, if we can get our researchers on as many papers as possible, that will make them look super productive, that'll increase the number of total citations that they've received, and therefore raise their prestige as researchers within their field, and as a result, by association, raise the status of Harvard University. And so the culture used to be, if you're a top researcher, get your name on as many papers as possible, even if your involvement in that paper is like minimal to barely anything. And so that's how we end up seeing people like Francesca Gino and maybe Khaled Shah as well, getting their name on so many different papers where they, after the fact, after all of this, allegations come out, they come out and say, well, actually, I didn't have that much involvement in the paper, but my name is on it because it is, right? And they were encouraged to do that by the culture at Harvard. But apparently, in wake of all of these allegations, that culture has now shifted. And at Harvard University, researchers are encouraged to be extra careful because while getting your name on a lot of papers is slightly good for your reputation, what's awful for your reputation is for a scandal like this to come out about your research. And so now they're being extra conservative and being like, only put your name on stuff that you actively have a huge role on and that you have proper oversight of and that you've checked through thoroughly, that you're confident is good research, because more of these scandals come out, the worse Harvard's reputation gets. And to be honest, Harvard's reputation is totally in the toilet right now. Now, as far as I can tell, there's been no formal action taken against Shah so far. He hasn't yet been put on administrative leave or anything like that, but I wouldn't be surprised if that happens in the near future. So no real point to make here, just wanted to report this story because I think it's so interesting to learn about just how easy it is for people to do this image manipulation, like how blatantly obvious they make it. They're almost like tempting peer reviewers to catch them out by putting them in the same plot like this. But, you know, finally caught, thankfully. So just want to say a big thank you to Elisabeth Bik for being amazing and doing the research that she does. And thank you to you guys for watching today's video. So I'll catch you guys in the next one. Be sure to check out Ground News, link in the description. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Oh, and also one more thing. If you're like 17 or 18 and you're like thinking of applying for Harvard, maybe reconsider.